One way that Iran could possibly retaliate for American strikes on 3 of its nuclear sites, analysts say, would be to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, a key shipping route for oil and gas. If they did, it would not be the first time. Washington Stand senior congressional analyst Mark Tapscott joins me now. Mark, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining me.
Good to be here, Tony.
All right, not only are you our congressional analyst, but since you've been around a while, you're going to be our historian, too. Let's talk about this, because back in 1988, we saw something similar.
Yes, indeed. Iran threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz, and they also took some military actions to threaten our transports through the area, oil transports and our military ships. President Reagan didn't put up with that. His response basically was to virtually put the Iranian Navy back into port, sank several of their ships, and inflicted a pretty serious attack on them, injuries on them. So you would think they would remember that, but we are dealing with the Iranians, so probably not.
So the Strait of Hormuz, this is a critical waterway. About almost a quarter of the world's oil moves through that region. So we're already seeing fluctuation in gas prices, oil prices, which obviously will filter its way down to gas prices as well. How significant of a threat do you really think this is on behalf of the Iranians?
To be honest, I don't think it's that serious. I think it's primarily rhetorical boasting, if you will. One of the key facts about the Straits of Hormuz, yes, the world relies on oil and liquefied natural gas coming through the straits, but 80% of what Iran ships is in the way of its oil and liquefied natural gas goes through the straits. So they effectively would be shutting themselves off from one of their most profitable markets. So I really don't think they're going to do that.
The regime really, I think, is against the ropes. They're now
Very
stating
much.
They want to have we were talking earlier with Congressman Pat Harrigan that they're looking for a diplomatic off-ramp. I think that's the only way they could possibly save the regime. I think any other confrontations direct confrontations with the United States could very well be the end of the regime.
You know, Tony, one of the things that I think we should bear in mind anytime we're dealing with the Iranians, we shouldn't assume that they are as logical and rational about these things as we are. They do have, we don't know how many, but we can be pretty certain, as Congressman Harrigan was just saying, and I think General Spalding did as well, some number of sleeper terrorist cells in this country and elsewhere around the world that could threaten our interest pretty much anywhere they decide to do it. And, once these folks get on the point of, hey, what have we got to lose now? We're gonna be kicked out of here anyway. That's when I think we should really fear what they could do with these terrorist cells. I remember very distinctly in 2023, one of those Iranians that was released into the U.S. looking into the camera and saying, "You don't know my name now, but you will." Mm-hmm. That guy's probably still here.
Yeah. I mean, that is, I think, that was the point I was making earlier with Congressman Harrigan,
Yes.
that I think the greater threat for them is their terrorist activity. In fact, I think what gave them the sense of strength were their proxies. I think once we got beyond, not we, but Israel got beyond their proxies, we saw how weak they really were. And I think terrorism is their strength. That's their strong suit.
Absolutely.
And so I do think that it is a threat. Having worked in the anti-terrorist field when I came out of the Marine Corps, 35 years ago, a little different times back then, but nonetheless, the Islamic terrorism really hasn't changed. That said, there's not the terrorism is more of a front to protect the mothership. There's really nothing left of the mothership to protect. I'm in favor of regime change, led by the Iranian people, not the U.S., not Israel,
Absolutely.
but the Iranian people, to throw off this repressive regime, and I think plant a flag of. I don't know if we can get to democracy, but let the people choose over there. Let them do it. I don't think we should be into the nation building phase that we tried before. Not we, but the Bush administration tried in Afghanistan. That was an absolute failure.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest mistakes President Obama made in the foreign policy area was ignoring the Green Revolution in Iran in 2009.
Yeah. Right.
Because it was very clear there was a strong popular uprising that could have affected some big changes.
Right. As I was talking earlier in the program, when it comes from within, when it's a indigenous move, it has staying power, and it's not fake. It's real, and it can bring the changes that are needed to remove this regime. Mark, out of time. Thanks for joining us. Always appreciate
pleasure.
the insights.